Thanks for joining us on episode 1668 of the Inspired Stewardship Podcast.
I'm Cameron Magee. I challenge you to invest in yourself, invest in others, develop your influence, and impact the world by using your time, your talent, and your treasures to live out your calling. Having the ability to find your passion and live it is key. And one way to be inspired to do that is to listen to this, the Inspired Stewardship Podcast with my friend, Scott Mater. Thing to do is to talk about it. We have a monthly meeting where we call them out. We actually hand out these, they're really silly, but these little gold star stickers. And we ask the team, not just for me to hand out, hey, Ryan did a great job last week. Here's a gold star from you on this. You were really embodying this core value, but we ask the team to give them to each other. Does anybody see something where they're like, hey, you really went above and beyond?
Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. If you truly desire to become the person who God wants you to be, then you must learn to use your time, your talent, and your treasures for your true calling. In the Inspired Stewardship Podcast, you will learn to invest in yourself, invest in others, and develop your influence so that you can impact the world.
In today's podcast episode, I interview Cameron Magee. I ask Cameron about how he runs a business with his personal faith, but also shows respect for others. I also ask Cameron about how he has truly found his calling. And Cameron also shares with you more about how his business makes an impact for him, his employees, and his customers. I have a great book that's been out for a while now called Inspired Living. Assemble the puzzle of your calling by mastering your time, your talent, and your treasures. You can find out more about that book over at inspiredlivingbook.com. It'll take you to a page where there's information and you can sign up to get some mailings about it as well as purchase a copy there. I'd love to see you get a copy and share with me how it impacted your world. Cameron Magee is the founder and CEO of Avid3, a national production company trusted to deliver flawless, high-stake events and conferences. For more than 20 years, he has been behind the scenes of some of the most visible gatherings in the country, producing summits, galas, and conferences for Walmart, the White House, and major associations. What sets Cameron apart is not just the productions he leads, but his passion for teaching planners how to navigate budgets, rehearsals, and technology with confidence. Cameron has built more than a production company in Avid3. He has built a culture rooted in service where planners know they will be supported with clarity and trust, and where production professionals are cared for as much as clients. The team provides end-to-end solutions in audio, video, lighting, staging, and hybrid events, while also investing in resources and education that empower planners to succeed. A teacher at heart, Cameron has written more than 100 articles and spoken at national industry events, sharing practical insights on everything from budgeting and RFPs to new technologies like LED walls. His sessions are known for their clarity and relatability, grounded in real-world experience, told through stories, and focused on tools planners can put into practice right away. Rooted in Bentonville, Arkansas with his wife, 2 kids, and golden retriever, Cameron brings humility and authenticity to every stage. Whether backstage with a headset or leading a workshop on the future of events, he helps people cut through the noise, focus on what matters, and deliver experiences that shine. Welcome to the show, Cameron.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Scott.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to our conversation today. So I talked a little bit in the intro about some of the work you do and now and how you've kind of been focused on building more than just a production company, but the work behind it as well. And I always think of intros and bios and those sorts of things as they show us the end of the journey, but they don't show us how we got there. Yeah. So take us back in time a little bit and share a little bit about your journey and what has brought you to the point where this is the work you feel called to do.
Yeah. Well, the bio covers some of this stuff, but yeah, I started volunteering at my church when I was 12, just doing the AV. Really started the business that I run now that probably is why we're talking on this podcast about 3 in my dorm room. But to me, I wasn't really good at sports or anything else, frankly. When I found audiovisual, when I wandered up to that sound booth, I felt an awakening in me that was super clear. Like, this is what you're actually good at. This is what you're gifted at. And that's been undeniable to me every year. When I talk to other technical people in the field, I realize I'm super blessed that stuff kind of makes sense to me pretty quickly and easily. When I talk to other people in the field that are more technical but don't really have the business acumen, I've found that I just have a passion for that and I love to read and learn about it. And so I'm affirmed even through the lows, when we've had dark, just tough seasons in business, which happens multiple times in a 15-year span. I'm affirmed that I'm supposed to do AV, I'm supposed to run a small business, and I'm uniquely set up to do it. So yeah, it's just been a consistent, I don't want to say calling, it's not a ministry, but a very consistent, clear path that this is my purpose.
Okay, now I'm going to challenge you. You just said it's not a ministry. Why?
To me, I love business and I love being out because I love Jesus's model in the Bible. He was with the woman at the well. He was with the tax collectors. He spent very little time in the 4 walls of the synagogue. And so I like his model, and I think it is my calling to not be in ministry. I serve at my church. I'm super active. I love serving, but I don't see my calling as the same as someone who gets called to say they're going to go, they're going to fly to Africa and start an orphanage or something. It's different to say full-time ministry. I'm not diminishing that what I do doesn't matter for the kingdom. I love getting to brush shoulders with people who aren't believers, and I love getting to be out in the field. And yesterday, getting to talk to people on site with a pretty large crew. But I don't want to diminish full-time ministry. I want to kind of honor and put them. Not that it's a competition, but I really appreciate full-time ministry, and I kind of want to honor that is a different thing than what I'm doing. I'm not trying to downplay it, but
I would agree that it's a different kind of ministry, but I'm not going to not call it a ministry.
That's
because I believe there is ministry into the workplace, and ministry between. If ministry only happens in the 4 walls of the church, then nobody's there to appreciate it.
and that really aligns, when you frame it that way, that aligns with what I think I'm doing and what I'm trying to do, which is I want to be out here on mission. And that's what my home church, we've been there for I think 14 years. And we talk about that, about living on mission. But I don't know. I just always have a higher respect for literal missionaries or something like that. But yeah, I'm not trying to diminish what I do at all.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about your faith journey. You mentioned the AV experience in church. We talked before, and I talked about the fact that I've always either been part of the AV team or running the AV team. That just, for whatever reason, seems to be something that I gravitate to in church as well. So talk a little bit about your faith journey and how your faith has intersected with what you do in life.
Yeah, it's
and
good.
Vice versa.
Yeah. Most of the circles I run in are pretty high performance driven entrepreneur type people. And so I think the best way to answer that question for me is more Jesus's model of what good is it for a man to gain the whole world but forfeit his soul. And to me, it would be really easy actually for me to just work all the time. It would be really easy for a Vibe 3 to be twice as big as it is. That's kind of a strange thing to say out loud, so I'll say that a little slower. It would be easy, or maybe I should say natural. Maybe my natural inclination would be for a Vibe 3 to be twice as big of a company as it is, or twice as successful as it is. I don't say that arrogantly, like that would be really hard and difficult to do, but what I mean is it is odd and takes a lot of self-control, fruit of the Spirit, for my faith to kind of inform how I go about my life. And a lot of my life is business. Any of us probably spend 40 hours a week at work, or with our coworkers more than our kids often. And so for me, when I think about my faith is really a healthy boundary or a healthy compartmentalization to not let work just expand. Like in 7th grade when they teach you here's a solid, here's a liquid, and here's a gas. The gas expands to the volume of the container that it's given. And work is that. And I'm such a driven person naturally, I think it would just expand to infinite degree, and I would have a terrible marriage, and I would be a terrible father. But faith to me reminds me from Jesus's words there, and from his example, that I don't want success over my soul.
Mm-hmm.
And really, that's kind of an individual decision for me. Maybe I could be saying that over here, but then everybody who works for me is just working like all the time, and it's just a machine. But to me, it even informs how I'm managing and how I'm leading and what I'm deciding for what projects we are going to do and aren't going to do, because I'm not interested in running a machine that's just chewing people up and spitting them out either. But I think all that comes from my faith. That's not like, oh, well, Cameron's a great guy, or Cameron ... It's really, it's just Jesus in me that's kind of informing that care about that.
Giving you the model to work from. I think one of, and again, I'm going to go back to what I said before, and that's what makes it a ministry. But I won't beat that horse the whole show, I promise. But the truth too is, you're talking about leading a faithful example. And I want to talk about that a little bit, because, I work with a lot of business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of different people, and I work with people a lot in their personal life. And obviously I work in time and money. And I think it shows up in both of those, where people get into this idea that more is always better, bigger is always better. And it's interesting how that it's not that less is better, but is it more really going to do anything for you that matters, that affects the kingdom, not just you personally, but affects the kingdom. How have you kind of balanced that or struggled with that as a business owner? Because I think especially for small business owners, that shows up. So let's face it, I'm sure everyone around you tells you, you need to scale, you need to make it bigger, you need to grow, you need to, right, all the time.
Yeah, it's been difficult. I call us a small business. Again, most of our friends and stuff that are running alongside me in different sprints, they're very, very much entrepreneurs. And I sometimes people will call me an entrepreneur. They're a little different to me, but the entrepreneur, when I say entrepreneur, I think somebody who's going to start McDonald's, who's going to franchise it, who's going to scale, who's going to not 10x, but like 1,000x or something like that. But I think I prefer small business owner, just something just a little bit more, not blue collar, but just more tangible than entrepreneur, this beautiful French word and all that comes with it. Because to me, we could have scaled differently. We could have we're in Arkansas. We could have a shop in Texas and Oklahoma right now. We could say, oh, we're like a regional thing. And then we're going to add a shop in Kansas, and then we're going to go down to Louisiana and Alabama or whatever, and just kind of start from there. Or honestly, when I started a production company in Arkansas, that's a hilarious idea. We should have done it in LA or New York to begin with. It doesn't make any sense here. But that decision was, well, this is where I want to raise my 2 little boys. We've got a 6-year-old boy and a 7-year-old boy. It's 2026 when we're recording this, and they should grow up in these woods, but here in town, my background of how I grew up around here, and so I think a lot of the way that I've chosen to spend the last 15 years, since the dorm room till now, has been based around kind of that concept of balance. But again, it's not just about my family. It's about Sebastian, who works for me, and he's got to be home in his bed all week this week. We could totally, a lot of production companies are really almost like tours. They're like a concert touring group. And so if you join that company, you're on the road all the time. In the industry, what's really common, especially the last 10 years, more and more each year, is for everybody to work as freelancers. Well, freelancers typically are on a flight and they're gone, making the highest day rate they can. And all of my entrepreneurial friends and coaches and advisors have told me 100 times, why are you still doing these goofy local events? On the same, like this week, we're in Washington, D.C. doing a really nice, large national conference, a typical event for us, 1,000-person general session breakout. That's what we do, is AV for these big conferences. And we're doing a really goofy little local thing that's a few $1,000s. But we're doing that because I don't want everybody on our team to have to feel like they have to hit the road for us to make payroll. It's like, hey, you've been gone, you've paid your dues for a few weeks, just stay home and just do this little thing. They need sound too, they need video too. And just trying to build a company where that's okay, but that's not normal. Every other event production company gets really good at, if you get really good at doing an 8-camera broadcast and all of a sudden ESPN says, can you go shoot college softball for us or whatever? And if you get good at college softball, there's only one team in Arkansas, so you're going to be gone 11/12 of the time. And we just don't want to, because I don't want growth at all costs. That makes for a very, I don't know, it's not a very, this podcast episode, people may not be salivating over like, oh, this is the new Elon Musk or the new McDonald's guy or whatever. I'm just not interested in that. I don't feel called to do that. I'm thankful for those guys and the products and the jobs that they have created. I have a lot of respect for them too, but that's not what I think I need to be doing.
And that's the part that I kind of wanted to point out. It's not, because I think we almost always set it up as one is positive and the other is negative, and pick one, right? There's a place for both. It's not that one is good and the other is bad. It's that, but are you doing it for the right reason?
That's right.
Because when you're chasing growth for growth's sake, what I've seen is people, there's no end to that.
That's right.
You could, you 10x it, and the next question is, well, great, when are you going to 10x it again?
Yeah, right.
It's not, oh, good, I'm done. It's, oh, I got to do it again. Oh, I got to do it again. Oh, I got to do it again. If that's the whole, if growth is the end product, well, then that's all you ever after, as opposed to something else. And you set it up a different way. Yeah. I love that. What another area that I wanted to touch on, I know you with what you do, you've got to lead a diverse team. You've got to interact with a diverse set of people, in events, and, this conference is that, and that conference is something else. And this event's for a church and this event's for whatever,
the opposite.
For fill in the blank. So what have you done to kind of balance leading the team well, but also I know you feel called to be open about your faith and your beliefs and leading from that place. So how do you balance that in the workplace?
Yeah, this podcast we're recording right now is an example of that. I want to follow Paul's example. I'm not ashamed of the gospel, and I want to be true to myself, but I also don't want to make people feel, repulsed to be around us. Avad 3 is not a quote unquote Christian company. I'm not sure there is such a thing. It's like that goofy cartoon, All Dogs Go to Heaven. There's some question there on like what Christianity is about your personal relationship with Jesus Christ. I don't know if there is such a thing as a Christian company. Perhaps there is. I'd love to talk about that sometime on a panel or something. But I am a Christian. I'm a Jesus following believer, and I own a company. And so I really try to separate myself from the company right when we first hire people. And I even have to do this in the interview process. I'll have people apply. Arkansas is not huge. There's 3 million people in the state. And I'll have people apply who know me or know my parents or know somebody who knows me or something. Or they added me on Facebook and they'll see how I'm posting on my personal Facebook. And they get all excited in the interview process. Oh, I've been working for this crazy company and I just can't wait to come work for a Christian company and all this stuff. And I have to tell them, hey, we're not opening every meeting with prayer here. We're not just, I'm not just walking around doing parables and talking about, this is just like that time Jesus fed the 5,000. We're going to pull off a miracle this week. That's not what we're doing around here. I have to almost tell some Christian applicants to calm down a little bit that they're not joining a church. I'm not the pastor that's just going to be opening the word all day, every day. But in that same breath, I have to calm down other applicants who say, hey, I heard that you're a Christian and I heard this is a Christian business. And, I have a lot of problems with the church. I have a lot of problems with Christianity. And I need to kind of understand they're very respectful. They're like, if that's you, that's cool. And that's not me. And that's cool. And let's just not work together. And that's okay. Like I'll work somewhere else. You work somewhere else. There's plenty of fish in the sea. And I have to calm those people down and say, hey, you are so welcome here. Mm-hmm. And all the baggage that you have from the church, maybe someone hurt you. We're all broken people, but you have a commitment from me that I actually don't use this business as a platform for my faith. I'm not going to stand up at all of our team meetings and preach a sermon or we're not going to sing a worship song or something like that. A ton of the people here are believers and that's great. A ton of them aren't. And I'm proud that they're both working here and both doing a good job. And that is intentional and on purpose, because the first, 5 or 6 years, I accidentally only hired Christians. I didn't mean to, but that's who I naturally attracted. And it was a very clear, I don't know if I want to say this legally, but it was almost an unconscious bias. All the HR training and stuff that I've done over the years is just trying to be a responsible business owner, realizing, we think this person's a cultural fit. Were they a cultural fit because they look and sound exactly like us,
Mm-hmm.
And changing some of that lens just from growth and maturing of, are they a cultural add? Are they going to add to our culture? And that's different than a cultural fit. And we are so much stronger today because of the diversity that we have. I believe the diversity makes you stronger. Just like if we were talking about a church right now, you need old people and young people in a church. You don't want a church to all be old people or all be young people. You need that diversity. It makes you stronger. And that's how we're set up here, is that we've got people who are believers and people that aren't. And it's if we want to get back to the ministry thing, it's my job to model healthy Christianity to them, not as a religion, but as a relationship with Jesus. And on their first week, I take them on a walk. We walk around the block. We talk about how we used to have the shop over here, and now we have a shop over here. And we talk about the company history. And I tell my story and how I started at church, and that's important to me. I tell that story, but then I make a commitment to them that I'm not going to use this as a platform for my faith. And I ask them to not use it as a platform for the Humane Society or whatever they're passionate about. And we agree that we're going to work together. And I'm proud of that. We've had a lot of crazy stories, I wouldn't say on the air, but a lot of crazy HR stories over the years that I'm really proud that people felt comfortable and safe here, for those times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things too about that is it's interesting because I think I have seen companies, not just around faith, but other things as well, where, and I've seen leaders do this, where they want to hire people that are basically them, and then you end up with a team of everybody who looks the same, acts the same, and thinks the same.
Yikes!
When something different comes along, and it will.
Right. That's a baseball team full of third base people. That's not good.
It ends up with they face a challenge, and they don't even realize that they created that challenge themselves, because what they were doing was hiring people that echoed them. And instead of being deliberate about saying, well, no, we need difference. We need different is not bad. Different is different. And by the same token, that doesn't mean you want to, you want to hire somebody that's going to come in and cause trouble and create a fight. But there's a difference between being different and creating a problem.
How we align that, and I didn't have this verbiage the first 10 years, but the last 5 years, I've really learned this from reading and just being diligent about it. It's really our core values. And I bet every episode talks about this. And it's like, great, here we go on core values again. But we can all align on values. We've got 5 values. Do these resonate with you? We talk about in the interview process. We talk about it on their first week, because we're going to hire off our values, and then we're going to fire off our values. Most of the people that I've fired over the years have been a core values violation type thing, where we say, hey, this isn't working here because you're not valuing this, and everybody else is the body is almost rejecting the kidney a little bit. It's like, hey, this isn't going to work. We can all align on the values. I wrote those values. They're from me. A lot of them are biblically based technically, but they're really about things that the right character of person wants to do. We can't have a bad egg here or a villain running around, but we align under the values.
And again, I've seen a lot of times where we create a mission statement, we create a list of core values, but everybody at the company is like, yeah, but we don't really mean those.
We talk about them constantly. They're on the wall right over here in my office. They're on the conference room wall. Every company has them on the wall. The thing to do is to talk about them. We have a monthly meeting where we call them out. We actually hand out these, they're really silly, but these little gold star stickers. And we ask the team, not just for me to hand out, hey, Ryan did a great job last week. Here's a gold star from you on this. You were really embodying this core value. But we ask the team to give them to each other. Because you might see something where they're like, hey, you really went above and beyond here, or this was incredible, or you actually did the hard thing here, and we want to celebrate that. And those simple little gold star stickers remind us and keep the core values top of mind. At the end of the year, we do like a real metal gold star, like we give them a trophy type thing for the team that's embodied it the most. But those are what really align us. And for me and for the believers, they can see Jesus' example woven into those. Our first one is here to serve. It's all about being a servant. And so we can see that the Son of Man didn't come to be served. He came to serve, and give his life as a ransom for many. To the non-believers, they say, oh, I love that. I want to be a servant. That's great. And we can align on that. And that's an important difference.
Well, it's back to preach the gospel, and if necessary, use words. Sometimes we just preach it by showing up and doing the right thing, right? I tell people one of the greatest compliments I ever got from a client who was they were from Dubai and Muslim, and after we worked together a few years, as we were stopping working together, he said he wanted to pay me a compliment, but he wasn't sure I would take it as a compliment. I'm like, we worked together for 3 years. You can say anything you want to me. I'm not going to be offended. He said, you're Christian, and I know you're Christian, but you're not annoying about it. And I'm like, dude, I'll take that as a compliment. Absolutely.
That's so good.
Because I'm annoyed by some of them too. It's okay. I get it.
That's so good.
How would you define success now for you and for the company? And I separate those on purpose. How would you define success for those, both yourself personally as well as the company?
Yeah, I would, that's good. I would kind of break that into like early, middle, and late stages as a company. We're 15, so not that that's late stage, like I'm ready to roll over and die or we're done. We're just getting started. I'm looking forward to doing another 25 years. But early, middle, and late on our current timeline, those first 5 years, the early years, success for me and the company, you can kind of hear both halves of that, was get set up, figure out how to do the work. How do we do good events? And so I'm literally at the front leading those crews, and what gear does it take, and what kind of checklist does it take, and how do we know when we're show ready? How do we know when we can open doors? How do we know afterwards that we've closed every loop and sent the recordings and everything's good and sent the thank you card? And that's the first 5 years. And so luckily we were married. Laura and I got married in college the same year I started the business. So we were married, but those first 5 years in any career, she was working her butt off. I was working my butt off. She's an ER nurse. And so it was okay to both grind it out. That's what you do when you're 21 years old, hard work. The middle stage was more about taking that and getting it into building a team. I still remember the first time I had the courage to double book us. The first day I was like, well, I'm going to say yes to 2 shows on the same day. Because before then it was like, well, if I'm the crew chief, we can only do 1 show at a time. But there was this perfect day where it's like, well, we need the audio gear over here and the lighting gear over here. So I'll go do this one. And I grabbed a guy and said, you go do that one. And that was a huge breakthrough moment where I realized that show went fine. I think they actually liked him better. Interesting. I'm not that great. I'm not hot stuff. We need to get him on more shows instead of me, and started pulling myself back a bit and then just multiplying his position. We have 5 of him today. And so now during that second era, success was make it where people hire a VOD 3 and they don't even know or care who Cameron is. And so in a way, that's where I say I'm entrepreneurial, where it's like, well, McDonald's doesn't care if Ray is on the grill. They care because it's consistent. But that middle era was about building the team. And so success felt like, can events happen without me even being there? And then I think maybe later, maybe around now or something like that, in a more mature way or long-term thing, I really care about how our brand is represented. And in an even kind of weirder way, I care about, are we growing capabilities over time? A program that I'm in called Strategic Coach by Dan Sullivan talks about valuing capability over cash. And now as a small business owner and as an entrepreneur, cash is oxygen. It's the thing that keeps the airplane in the air. I'm a pilot and I love to fly, and you can't run out of fuel. It doesn't matter how good of a pilot you are. If you're out of fuel, you're going down at 500 feet a minute. That's a problem. And so you've got to have fuel and you've got to have cash. But I've really tried the last few years to look longer term at, okay, I know we're not going to make payroll Friday. We're going to have to go into debt to do this. Or I know we're going to have a situation over here where this deposit invoice is not going to make it on time, and so we're short on cash. But not firing people, or not like cutting the utility, just crazy stuff I did early on that was like, well, we've made it bigger than Cameron, we've made it a team, but like now we're riding this roller coaster. I've tried to be more about, well, we've got a few weeks off. Let's not panic. We don't have any shows to do. What capabilities can we get out in the shop and work on? Can we retool some of our road cases where they're faster for setup and easier to deploy and less maintenance? And just having a calmer peace about we've been provided for in the past, we're going to be provided for in the future. In fact, we've got dates booked 3 weeks from now. It's just that this small drought has this event moved 2 weeks later this year, and this event moved to 2 weeks earlier. So we're bored for a few weeks. That's okay. Let's grow our capabilities. And that's kind of what I think success looks like for me as a leader individually. It's me at home where I'm not up here just grinding out, sweating through that sales gap. But also success as a business, saying, we can weather these peaks and valleys. And but I've learned so many lessons through that, Scott, that we can unpack just doing it the wrong way so many times.
Talk a little bit about that. What are some of the things that have taught you to focus on capabilities, to realize that you don't have to, quote, ride the roller coaster all the time, and you're multiplying yourself? I mean, all of those are lessons that I think most of us could take away. I especially see, and I'd like on the multiplying yourself part, where I see a lot of leaders hang on is the stuff that they love to do.
Oh, yeah.
But it really doesn't have to be them doing it. It is actually something that you could delegate. But man, I love doing it. It's so much fun. How did you overcome that?
Well, that's me too. And I get that, but I could speak to it a little bit. It's always a work in progress, but I'd be happy to speak to it as an inspiration to others, not to come down from the mountain and say I have it all figured out. But the phrase I use for that is unique ability. Again, that's another shout out 2 in a row to this Dan Sullivan guy, great author. But he talks about unique ability. And there are things that you're gifted at doing. It's how I opened the show today. I was talking about I've been really gifted at AV. I've been really gifted at small business. That's great. But I'm motivated to make the business run without me because I want to be able to take a whole week off and my cell phone not ring. I want to be able to be a good husband and do an annual honeymoon with my wife again, an anniversary trip where we go and don't stay glued to our cell phones the whole time. And so I absolutely want to get to operate my unique ability. And if we buy new gear or something, I love to kind of be the one to test it and see, like, do we really like this? Because if everybody got sick, I'd have to be the one to troubleshoot it and fix it. I want to make sure I like what we have in the shop. But I've really tried to build a business that doesn't have to be me, that I'm choosing to play shortstop on the baseball team if we have a situation I need to take the field. But if I'm the shortstop player all the time, there is no head coach. And just realizing kind of the higher calling of, like, you can't have a leaderless organization without leadership, without vision, that people perish. And so all the times that I've tried to be the head chef at this restaurant we're running, I realized there's no one actually keeping an eye on things. And so I'm back here cooking up a storm and having a great time. And I didn't realize we never unlocked the front door, or just something crazy. One of my guys in a staff meeting one time, he used this example. He's from Chile. And I guess for whatever reason, he did some like fire safety training one time in Chile. And I guess in Chile, the fire department keeps one guy, no matter how many firemen show up, one guy's not allowed to fight the fire. Well, if only 5 firemen show up and there should have been 10, they only fight it with 4, because one person stands as far away from the fire as they possibly can and just keeps an eye on things and realizes we've got 4 men fighting this fire at the front door of this house. And on the second story, there's a kid hanging out the window. Somebody grab a ladder. And so I feel it's a higher calling and a more important thing to stay back and see it run. And then absolutely, I'm the head tinkerer. We have 9 shows in 10 days right now. We have a culture of what we call next time notes. Every member of every crew has a journal. They're writing down what we need to do differently next time and what we need to do the same. I'm the chief student of reading those next time notes. I'm writing my own as I'm on site. And so I'm making all these little, tickets and support ticket type things on the back end. We need to fix this and let's work on that. And we're always tinkering on those things, and I'm happy to tinker. But it's my job to be the leader. And I train that in our production managers who lead the crews as well. We have a phrase called get out of the lift. It's really easy when you're responsible for a show and we have a problem over here to jump in the scissor lift and go fix it. But if you're in the lift, there's no one managing. You're doing, not managing. And so we're really maniacal about get out of the lift, do what only you can do, lead. That's a great book. McEwen, I think, is the author of that one. I don't have it in here right now. But just some great principles of realizing you can't get too sucked into it because you have to be the leader. Hopefully I've answered your question. We can talk more about that if you want to dig in more.
And there's another expression and article, and I want your take on it. Speaking of leadership, I don't know if you ever read it, but there's a great article from Harvard Business Review back in the day I think it was Goldsmith who wrote it, called "It's Not My Monkey." And the
Not my
phrase,
circus, not my monkeys.
yeah, well, it's just not my monkey. Okay. And what he's talking about is this. He's like, when you're a leader and one of your employees is walking down the hall and comes up to you with a problem, he says, I want you to picture that they have this giant chimpanzee on their back. And they come to you that, Cameron, we've got this problem. Here's the problem. And your question as a leader is that my monkey or is that their monkey? Should I take the problem on?
It's good.
Sometimes I should. Or should I say, well, no, that's your monkey. You need to go keep the monkey and solve the problem, And so what do you do to kind of help your team develop that? The idea of, yeah, you're the leader, you're the problem solver, you're that, but only if it's your problem.
Yeah, this is a tough question. I got an executive assistant about 5 years ago, and that was a tough thing because being from Arkansas, it's kind of weird to have an executive assistant. Maybe that's normal in New York City or something, but it's kind of, you have an executive assistant. And we use the acronym EA, and I joke with her and call her my entrepreneur's assistant because it's different being an entrepreneur's assistant than an executive assistant. You have to put up with a lot more with my crazy ideas. But my first executive assistant back in the day, she used this phrase that kind of haunts me. And she used this phrase, does this have to be Cameron? And so what she's talking about, kind of like this chimpanzee on the back, anytime I'm doing anything, she would just ruthlessly monitor my time usage, which is helpful to have an outside person looking at you. You think, oh, I have to get all this emails done, whatever. When someone's just staring at you being like, this is interesting. Is this what we're doing all afternoon? And realizing, oh, maybe all these emails didn't need to come to me, or maybe someone else could have been CC'd, or maybe I should let them respond first and then I can chime in if necessary. And the phrase, does this have to be Cameron? Now, we don't use that phrase with the team because it sounds very arrogant and very egotistical to say, like, does this have to be Cameron? That's not good leadership to walk around and kind of hands on your hips. Does this have to be Cameron? But I have that haunting my head, and Paige, who's my assistant now, knows that phrase quite well because she has to catch me doing stuff that is like, this doesn't have to be you. This could be someone else. And let's build a system where this is someone else, I think is the first way I'd answer that. And then maybe a second answer is, I love to coach. Gosh, I love growth. I am really hard on myself in growing. I love to read books that basically challenge my thinking and tell me I thought I was doing something right, and it turns out I've been doing it completely wrong, and we need to change that. And so I love to be the team coach. And it's natural for people when they're stuck to come to the coach and be like, hey, I'm stuck. But instead of I'm stuck, here you go, and handing it off, as you said, the chimpanzee, it's I'm stuck, what? And then asking the simple phrase, I think this is John Townsend, what do you need? It's a very powerful phrase. What do you need? Because all human beings, the number one, this is Henry Cloud, but he's friends with John Townsend, says the greatest human need is to understand and to be understood. And so if they're stuck, it's my job to help them feel understood and to show them that I understand. But then it is up to them to grow through it and to work that out. And if it's a problem I've solved, I can coach them directly. Hey, maybe think about it this way and good luck. And if it's a problem I haven't solved, I may go with them. I may be like, well, we've never had a deer walk into our show before. We had a show here in Arkansas where a deer walked in last week, first time in 15 years. The show was over, but a deer got spooked in the parking lot and kind of whatever deers do, whatever deer do, that he just bounded in. It was a girl deer, no horns. So that's when it's like, neither one of us really know what to do. Let me go. I'll have your back on this one. Let's see how this is going to go. Luckily, the facility person, that venue, is a real redneck and tackled the deer and cured it. Fascinating to witness. So that was taken care
Boy,
of.
there's a sentence you don't hear every day.
Golly. Yeah, here in Arkansas, most of our shows on the road, but that was a fascinating story. But yeah, I think it's important to not take it from it, just like parenting. It's easy to helicopter parent and not let them fall and kind of follow them around the playground where they don't accidentally slip off the monkey bars. But it's only about 20 inches off the ground. Let's let them fall. That's my wife, the ER nurse speaking. She's like, they're not going to break anything on the monkey bars. Let them go for it. But I think the knowledge of her knowing what it takes to break a bone gives her a little bit of the courage to face it and let them grow the capability on their own. But that's not normal. That's not natural, of course.
Well, and besides, she's an ER nurse. If they do break a bone, she knows a good place.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. She's like, no, it's fine. Yeah. Yeah. This is different. It's all right.
I know where to take them.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it is. And I mean, I always hesitate when we talk about children analogies in business, but there is that analogy of if they don't ever have a problem, that's equally bad to if all you do is stick them with problems. Both of those are bad. It's just that middle ground is where we want to be so often. So I've got a few questions that I like to ask all of my guests, but before I go there, is there anything else about your journey, the work that you do there at Avid, the anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think, I do these podcasts. The past year, I've done so much more of these. We have somebody placing me in these. I'm doing a lot more of them. I do them to be an inspiration to people. If somebody in my hometown says, hey, I'm thinking about starting a business, can we go get a pancake and talk about it or something like that? I love to talk to people. And I've realized that even people who don't work for me anymore, I'll run into them and they'll say, I still use that thing that we did when I was there. I've implemented that in my personal life, or I love this. And so I don't do these, again, out of like arrogance or being egotistical or something. I do them because so many people have encouraged me and said, you should help spread that a little bit. You should amplify that a little. That's really why I take them on. Of course, the business case of me doing these is just to make sure more and more people have heard about our small business that does AV for conferences. And so it's important, if this is like I'm the sponsor for 15 seconds, that I do an ad to say, if you have a conference that needs audiovisual, I hope you would give us a call. Most of my best leads and best referrals over the years have come from people when they're stuck and they say, hey, we have this conference and we've been using the hotel and they're just not doing a great job and we want to try something different. And a lot of those are just, I'll jump on Zoom and help them look at their old quote and maybe they're spending too much or not spending enough on certain things. But I think that's all I would add before we keep going, Scott, is just if somebody actually knows a conference or has something that they're like, yeah, I'd love to look at this. Half the time we're probably already booked those dates. We have some recurring conferences, but I'd love to just be on Zoom and help be a free consultant to even look at their stuff for them. But that's all I would add, just a silly little commercial break for our business. But we can get back to
it's not silly at all. Absolutely. So my brand is Inspired Stewardship, and I run things through that lens of stewardship. And yet I've discovered over the years that that's one of those words that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So when you hear the word stewardship, what does that word mean to you?
Stewardship to me is around the people that I get to be around almost daily. If I'm with anyone of my leaders or we're having lunch together or whatever, I'm looking across the table into these people's eyes and realizing this person has chosen to trust 40 hours or more a week of their life to this company in my hands as their leader. They're looking to me and say, hope you make a good decision this week, bud. I hope you don't screw up something with the bank. I hope you don't get us in legal trouble. I hope we don't get into a contract thing that's going to make us have to do layoffs or whatever. I view stewardship mostly through the lens of people care. And I can't believe my wife married me. I think she's one of a kind. I'm thrilled to be married to Laura. It's a gift every day. I love Laura. And her father-in-law is in town this week. He came up to see some baseball. Her mother is here. My father-in-law, her mother and father are here. And they're staying with us. And any hour I'm with him, I just think back to when I asked him if I could marry her. And I think, I got to make this man proud. I got to make this man proud that I'm not a deadbeat, that I'm not a no count, that I'm taking good care of his daughter. When I look at these two adorable little boys that God has given us, our oldest Jack, we had our youngest Luke, we adopted. I look at Luke and think, man, his parents, his birth parents, selflessly chose to give him up, not to have an abortion, not to, they gave him to us. It's my job to steward his first 18 years to help him turn into a man and grow up as an old school man, a cowboy man who's got principles and and courage and character. And so I look at stewardship through the people that God has placed in my life more than anything. Our church, our ministry, I lead worship. I'm the kind of the fill-in guy when our guy needs to have a well-deserved week off. I play drums in a 90s country cover band. I can't believe we get to do that. We just passed 10 years. The stewardship of realizing like the whole band's counting on me to not get off beat here. Like I need to do a good job for these people. This is a gift that we have the freedom to play this music. I'm a pilot. I fly airplanes. I can't believe that the FAA still lets people do this, get in these small Cessna planes. But there's really not that many incidents where we're harming other people. There's plane crashes, there's errors and engine failures and things, but when you really think about it, all it takes is one or two of us pilots screwing that up to ruin it for everybody. And so to me, stewardship in my life is realizing how blessed I am at everything that God has given me and making good decisions with that so that I'm making him proud as my father, just like my father-in-law, that what he's given me, that I'm using it for his glory and for his kingdom and not just me having fun or something, you know?
Absolutely. So this is my favorite question that I like to ask everyone. Imagine for a moment I could invent this magic machine. And with this machine, I was able to take you from where you are today and transport you into the future, maybe 150, maybe 250 years. But through the power of this machine, you were able to look back and see your entire life, see all of the connections, all of the ripples, all of the impacts you've left. What impact do you hope you've had in the world?
I love this question. And you were gracious enough to share this question with me beforehand so I could be prepared. And I appreciated that. I thought a lot about it, and it's consistent with, I wrote my own obituary as like an interesting exercise a couple of years ago. It's a powerful thing. Donald Miller had a little workshop that helped you write your own obituary.
This is my version of that without asking people to write an obituary, because I always think that's a little morbid.
It's morbid. My gosh. It hit me just right at this right season, and I had some time and I did it. And I want people to look at me and say, that guy helped me grow. It's very important to me whether somebody works with me at work or someone at church spends time with me in ministry or a personal friend, just a friendship or a family member, that they say he loved me for who I was and accepted me for who I was, even if we met as junior high punks and we were idiots, but he pushed me and towards my goals, not when I'm saying their own goals, not where I wanted to push them, not a parent trying to push a kid to play a sport they don't want to play, but that he loved me and cared about me and met me where I was. But as much as he accepted me there, he didn't settle for me staying there. He was curious with me and he asked, what are your goals and where do you want to be and what's stuck right now? And don't stay there and don't settle for that. I had a flight instructor that one of my favorite relationships in my whole life, and I only got to have him for about 6 months because I caught him right before he got moved up to like American Airlines or whatever. He was in his last little season of being a flight instructor before he was eligible to go fly the jets. And I'll never forget, I had just gotten so stuck in my flying. We could not get past this one milestone to send me off for my test. And he started tapping on the glass of this little instrument in the cockpit. He would just tap. It was super annoying. I won't tap on my webcam, but he would just tap, tap, tap. And he was trying to draw my attention to this one gauge that for whatever reason, I just was settling. I was accepting that gauge was fluctuating a little more than acceptable. And finally, he just got a little brutal with me. And he said, don't settle for that. And he said, I've been flying with you for weeks now. We've just been, every lesson, we just come up and you just fluctuate and you just kind of settle for this. And you're never going to be a pilot. You cannot settle for this gauge being this volatile. Don't settle for it. And so I want people to look back and say, he loved me, but he loved me enough with truth and love and grace, but truth, to say, hey, I love you, I care about you, and you say you're wanting to lose weight, and you've been saying that for 3 years, and I guess I'm abrasive enough and a big enough jerk to point out, like, you're not losing any weight. It's fine if you don't want to, but you're not, and let's talk about it. And nobody does that. And so I kind of just want to be rude enough and abrasive enough and comfortable in my own skin enough to just ask him, if you still want it, great, let me help you work through it together. Not that I'm a weight loss coach, but I can help you talk it out. But if you don't want to, or your goals have changed, that's cool too, because they're your goals and not my goals. But I want people to look back and say, man, that guy had the courage and the confidence and the kindness to help me grow. That's what's most important to me. Well, I don't care if they like me. I care that they grew, and I'm willing to be on thin ice a little bit at times. Where they're like, man, like I'm kind of mad at him right now. That's really my goal in life.
So what's on the roadmap? What's coming next as you continue on your journey?
Yeah. So as a business, we're pretty much fully national now. We still do stuff in town, like I said, but most of our kind of what's next in our journey is essentially all national growth. So as you can imagine, not that many national conferences come through Arkansas. They go from Chicago to, Houston to LA to New York or whatever. And so our growth as a company is dependent on when we do a good job for somebody. Usually they retain us for a long time, but our growth is becoming all about asking for referrals and saying like, well, who else do you know? And what are these other conferences? Because people don't typically want to roll the dice by trying a new AV team. AV for these conferences is over $100,000 typically. And so you don't really you don't do that on a cold call. You don't do that on, I saw an ad and I'm going to try these guys. And so our future company growth is all about referrals of these large national annual conferences. My personal growth professionally is really all about growing as a leader. I'm not good at PR type, I don't know what you would even call it, almost like cultural management. I'm kind of an engineer and I'm pretty quick to be like, we're doing this now. And so I personally am growing a lot through thinking about the ripple effect of like making sure that I've said something 3 times in 3 different ways before I just squeeze the trigger and make a decision, and making sure the whole team knows about it and we're all on board. And that's really what I'm kind of growing through right now, is almost the diplomacy and the tact of being a leader. Just because Avod 3 is bigger now than we used to be. I used to, like I said, just kind of be a soccer player on the field with the team. And it's like, I just passed you the ball and let's go. Now I'm like stuck up in the press box or something. And so a lot can get miscommunicated through under communication. If I don't just bathe things in tripling up in communication with intentions. And so that's that. And then personally, I'm just trying to continue to have a more and more vibrant personal life every year. I used to just be fine with, I volunteer at church. I have this small business. I volunteer at church. That's me. Then it was, I think I want to start flying airplanes, and then it was, I want to start playing drums in this 90s country cover band my friend is starting. And now that my boys are getting a little older, they're into stuff. They want to go fishing. I'm a terrible fisherman, but I want to have a vibrant personal life where I get, I guess, good at fishing, or at least better at putting these worms on the hooks, and get good at kind of having a vibrant personal life. Too many entrepreneurs and small business owners don't stop work because they don't have something calling them to it. It's just like, you can't stop being an alcoholic if you don't replace it with something. You can't just say, I'm just going to sit here now. You have to kind of replace that with something. And there's some gospel truth in there as well. But that's kind of me as a company, and me as an individual professionally, and me as a personal just individual, what my future looks like for the next 3 years. But I'll be here at Avod 3. We're not going anywhere. I'm not trying to sell it or get acquired. I want to run this for another 25 years. And this is kind of my little restaurant we've started. And so I still want to be tinkering in it when I'm quote unquote retired. But yeah, nothing major changes there. Just I'll be here doing this and meeting more and more national conferences and taking care of the AV for them,
And you can find out more about Cameron and Avod 3. You find Avod at Avod number 3, the numeral.com. Of course, I'll have a link to that one. And then Cameron would also invite anyone to connect with him on LinkedIn as C-Magee. Of course, I'll put a link to that as well. So you can find links to both of those in the show notes. Cameron, what else would you like to share with the listener?
I hope they'd connect. I love what's been so fun about these podcasts is people connecting with me on LinkedIn afterwards and just getting to know, oh, that's cool. You run a consulting business, or that's cool. You're an EOS integrator. I love connecting with people. That's the weirdest part about this show, Scott, is we've been here talking. We have no idea who's listening. I'm used to, you may know, but I don't know. And I'm used to live events where if somebody tells a joke, somebody laughs. This is a little different being on these podcasts. So I hope that people will connect and say hi. And just, I want to kind of meet the audience the way that you would after a show. You'd stand around and say hi, and so that's what I'm looking forward to. But thanks for having me. I hope it was an interesting episode for you. I hope it was inspiring to somebody out there to see my little story and see themselves in it and see the gospel in it. And thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for listening to the Inspired Stewardship podcast. As a subscriber and listener, we challenge you to not just sit back and passively listen, but act on what you've heard. and find a way to live your calling. If you enjoyed this episode, please do us a favor. Go over to inspiredstewardship.com/iTunes rate, all one word, iTunes rate. It'll take you through how to leave a rating and review and how to make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so that you can get every episode as it comes out in your feed. Until next time, invest your time, your talent, and your treasures. Develop your influence and impact the world.
It's everything.